This series was produced by Don Ashford and originally aired on KTRT FM 97.5 in the Methow Valley. My thanks to Don Ashford and Diana Hottells for the privilege of making these stories available on Voices of the Methow. Enjoy!
All right, it's time for a segment of The Whole Damn Valley by Diana Hottells. These are stories that she collected back in the 70s and 80s for the newspapers and so on. And a lot of the folks still around at that point in time were ranchers. And ranching nowadays is a little bit different. We still do have some, but not to the extent that we used to. So here's a little ranching story. Diana?
J. Stokes, rancher, written for the Methow Valley News in October of 1981. Blake, 4 months old, has the Stokes eyes, but whether or not he will inherit the family birthright of farming Beaver Creek is debatable. When he eventually comes of age and realizes that he could be the 5th generation to lease range on Fraser Creek and eke a farmer's living off the fertile Beaver Creek fields, the cycle may already have closed. Farming the Methow has never been a path to riches. A grown-up Blake will have to choose between a way of life that may have gone out of style and the ample other opportunities here or elsewhere to make a living. J. Stokes, center of gravity for 5 generations of Stokes whose focus has been ranching the area, feels the prospect of Blake's continuing the business is not particularly good. Jay's lifetime, on the other hand, has spanned the time from certain inevitability to a definite choice, from being raised on a struggling Methow ranch to a time when he was able to choose to ranch or not. Jay is now in the process of easing himself out of the work and leaving the running of the place to his sons Maury and Vic. Jay and his wife, Elsie, are happy their sons have chosen and enjoy the work. Maybe it indicates that they're pleased with what they had growing up, Elsie mused. In 1922, when Jay was 4, the family moved down to the land that he and his sons now work. By 1929, his older siblings had left home, and that left me, the oldest child at home, and me going on 11. I had an opportunity to mature early, he concluded. Go look after our cows on Wolf Canyon, his father told his 11-year-old son. Wolf Canyon? Where's that? Gawked Jay. His father gave him sketchy directions with a wave toward the distant hills and sent him on his way. That was the beginning of Jay's responsibility for the stock. Today, he and his sons still ride much of the same terrain for their cattle. He considers it the hardest part of ranching, although he admitted he tended to feel slightly discouraged at a rancher's lot just last week while attending a calving by flashlight in, quote, that miserable rain in the creek bed with the water running over my boot tops. But back when he was young, he enjoyed the life wholeheartedly. He has the eloquent, zesty way of telling stories about that world, a little wild, a lot dusty. What is most real to him about it is the sense of being on one's own in a world of finalities. You either made it or you didn't.
There you have it. Looking for the promised land here in the whole damn valley. Here's Diana.
This is about Pearl Clark, bowling in Twisp. Written maybe for the Wenatchee World in December of 1986. In the lane, Pearl is glistening. On Tuesday afternoons, Pearl Clark hangs out in the bowling alley. She's 83. Eyeing the pins way down that hardwood lane, Pearl walks up to the firing line and rolls the ball the distance. Her right arm follows through above her head, and there she keeps it suspended as she watches the ball's slow progress down the alley. If the hit is good, her big smile flashes on and she wheels to face the accolades of her fellow bowlers, senior citizens like herself. Good going, Pearl, one applauds. "Just like a pro," comments another. "Just like you knew what you were doing." If she's thrown a gutter ball, she waits patiently for it to return, then tries again. Pearl often breaks 100. A newspaper clipping in her pocket persuades unbelievers she had a particularly good week last April. Organized last year, the once-a-week gathering of senior citizens at the Methow Valley Lanes has provided good times during the slow, cold months. The management offers them a game, plus shoes, for $1. Bill Westlake, 70, just switched to his left hand this year after pulling a muscle in his right arm. Nevertheless, he bowls well. After knocking over most of the pins on his first roll, he turns and says with a smile, "And I can hardly stand up." Myrtis Phillips and her husband had never bowled before joining the group. "What am I doing wrong today?" she mock wails after her ball finds a better route via the gutter on its way to the target. "You're not hitting the pins," laughs Les Doris, knowing he can get away with a jibe. Aware of each other's aches and pains, they laugh and joke and encourage one another. Winter Tuesdays pass a little faster that way.
Maybe you don't know that we had a bowling alley here. It's where Cascade Pipe is now. And it probably closed down, trying to remember, mid-'80s, maybe a little past the mid-'80s, something like that. But anyway, yeah, we used to have a bowling alley. Pretty cool, huh? Pioneers and idealistic newcomers all here in this place, dealing with the cold, heat, fire, snow, and one another in this sometimes cantankerous promised land. Here's Diana.
It's a fishing story. This is about Perry Clark. It was written for the Methow Valley News in December of 1976. The Methow River swirled around the horse's legs. Perry Clark, age 11, sat as still as he could behind the Indian. His feet were tied together under the horse's belly. Holding his breath, he and the Indian watched the undulating forms of the salmon in the refracted light beneath the river's surface. The Indian held a spear poised. Like lightning, the Indian struck. The spear danced, but he pinned the salmon under the water until it perished. That was the way it was done. It was 1901. There were far more Indians than white here during the summers at that time, Perry recalled 75 years later. One summer, when Indians had come to the Methow Valley to catch and dry fish for the winter, Perry counted 32 teepees on Lake Creek. "Us boys took a liking to those people," Perry said. "We'd go fishing with them, even though my father didn't like them too much. They took care of us. That's why they tied my feet under the horse so I wouldn't fall into the river if the horse bolted. I fished with Methow George once. He was a quiet old feller. He didn't do too much talking. And I got acquainted with Chillowish Jim. I learned to speak their language, Chinook, and sometimes I still speak it with Bill Robler just for fun."
So, there you have it. The book that these stories are taken from, The Whole Damn Valley by Diana Hottells, can be had at the Trails End Bookstore, Ulrich's Pharmacy, the Confluence Gallery, and the Schaefer Museum.